If the next panel wants to come up, we got one more panel and then a quick award presentation, and then we can drink. So, because I know that's what some of you are waiting for. So, clicker, where's the clicker? Oh. Are you Greg? Oh, cool. It's all yours. Take it away. Yeah.
What's your advancement? Just the green area?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's our one. Cool. Unless I want to irritate somebody. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Yeah, no problem.
Greg seems like a very organized guy.
I know.
Makes me and my notes shameful.
I got nothing. I'm mixed up behind you. Because this isn't organized.
No one will ever know.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always fun following Mr. Gower and his plethora of slides. His talk about digital assets and that vision is very much dovetails into what our group is going to talk about, which is payment progress. So we've accumulated payments experts with different disciplines, and we look forward to sharing that to you, not only the payment problems, but as I mentioned, the payment progress. So a little bit about myself is, my name is Greg Wilford, first of all, despite the spelling of the last name. And I've been immersed in payments for, 25 years-ish. And I'm gonna tell you kind of a funny story, which is, started off in co-founding a mobile payment entity, I'll call it. And we became the fastest product launch in history because of SMS texting, which soon became premium text messaging, which is the precursor to today's mobile payments. And you talk about friction. A lot of you remember buying ringtones and how painful that was. It's gotten better, and that's part of the progress. So Ken this morning from US Bank talked a little bit about how checks are still hanging out, right? Well, back in 2017, I moderated a panel at the AFP conference, and the name of the panel was, it was a Halloween theme called The Check That Would Not Die. And, we've been prognosticating the end of checks forever, and yet here they still are. And the reason I mention that is because we are in the midst of a convergence, which is technology with the payment progress. And the modernization of payments that's happening is not just about digital payments. It's also about checks, it's about ACH and the like. So having said all that, we'll get right into our group here. And the first payment expert we have on stage is, of course, Elizabeth McQuarrie. And aside from being the partner, head of payment strategy and research for Glenbrook Partners, she has also been involved in payments for quite some time. And she's the former CEO of IPFA. A lot of you are familiar with that organization. And so what we've been talking about for a good deal of the day are faster, smarter payments. And so, Elizabeth, first of all, welcome to the stage.
No, thank you. Glad to be here.
You're welcome. I think the first question I'd like to throw at you would be talk about faster payments. So with regard to consumers, is a faster payment the holy grail? Is that what we're all looking after? Or with consumers, are they also focused on security?
I just wanted to see if there were any consumers in the room. Because I'm pretty sure the consumer already thinks they are using faster payments all the time. As we know, it's a very fragmented industry, and we still have a lot of, maybe there's the reality and the perception. The perception of most consumers is that all of their payments are faster. Very few consumers are writing checks, for example. Many people don't even know what it is, but we have rules and things that give the perception of faster payments even when it's not. Security aspect of that, I think consumers have that expectation of us, particularly everything that's the happy path of payments.
They just assume it's there?
Yeah, I mean, when you buy a car, do you expect it not to be safe? I mean, exactly, right? It's a consumer expectation. And it's our job to make sure that those expectations are met, I think.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so the next payment expert we have is Robert Skiba. And Robert is not only the chairman of the IPA, he's also the EVP of Government Affairs at INCOM. And his involvement as a board member at many other organizations, including the Electronic Transaction Association, is something that you'll discover quickly how much he knows about the space. So, Bob, what I'd like to do is switch gears a little bit and talk about digital wallets. We've heard that discussed on several panels throughout the day. And there's a great stat I want to lay on you, and that was Bloomberg came out with a forecast. This was in May of this year. Basically said that by 2031, the mobile wallet market size is going to reach $16.2 trillion. That's a huge number. So my question to you to start things off is, are mobile wallets really a big deal? I mean, are consumers buying into this, or are we not there yet?
Well, I would say it's evolutionary, not revolutionary. And I'm talking in particular about...
The microphone. Oh, just closer.
Oh, closer to it. Okay. Well, I've never heard that before. Okay. So what it amounts to is that this has been a progression. If you look at the first participants in it, Apple Pay was 2014. And so consequently, there has to be a balance between the technology catching up with the consumer, and it helps if the Wall Street Journal publishes an article just today on digital wallets, and this is latest, greatest information. In particular, 87% of the U.S. adults has a smartphone. 44% of the smartphones are capable of having a mobile wallet. That's all. And so consequently, the technology's got to catch up with it. Now, to that point of it, about 90% of the retail points of distribution, the people that, in fact, you go in and use a smart wallet on, in fact, are able to do it now with retail. So that's been a slow progression up. Now, to that point, though, only 70% currently accept Apple Pay, which is the dominant player in the marketplace. There's Apple Pay, and then there's everybody else. Google Pay, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, anything else that, in fact, is of a digital nature is second to Apple. And yet, in spite of that, the penetration of the marketplace is a long way to go before people know it, understand it. 39% of Americans don't even know what Apple Pay is, let alone a digital wallet.
So it sounds like there's room for optimism, but we're not there yet.
Absolutely. And it'll be evolutionary, not revolutionary. But a lot of ground has been made up within the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Okay, next to the stage is Stuart Watterson. Stuart has been, again, immersed in the mobile payment space and the payment space in general for over 30 years. So he's got some great experience with regard to not only digitization and the security side, but also user experience as well. And that's something we're going to talk about a little bit right now. Stuart, how are you doing?
Good.
Okay, we saved Stuart for dessert. So I actually wrote this down because I wanted to make sure.
I don't know how I feel about that.
The last one. So I actually wrote this down to make sure I got it absolutely right, because I think it's an interesting point So we talk about friction, not just speed, right? Because there's the yin and the yang of this. But along with the speed, without security and without the trust in that security, you have no customer confidence in that, and that can lead to all kinds of trouble, okay? So having said that, where are we in the need with tokenization of payment credentials? Are we need to, where we need to be, or a long ways to go?
I think it's closer to a long way to go, and a long way to go implies journey, right? And journeys have beginning, middles, and ends. This is not a journey. It's not even a continuum. It's just an ongoing process that will never stop. Apple Pay, you mentioned trust. That's one of the biggest drivers of why maybe a certain demographic won't use Apple Pay. There's lots of reasons, but that's a big one because they don't trust it. But Apple Pay kind of got the ball rolling as far as tokenization. Apple Pay, the introduction of it in September of 2014, represented the first at-scale network payment token being turned loose in the wild. And that was a great start. What actually led to that, to go one step further, was the EMV chip. And that also was kind of a building block. We got an immediate benefit out of that, really, within a few years. And around eliminating fraud and counterfeit fraud. But tokenization now is going to, the gains there are going to be a little harder fought, and it's going to take time to get there.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, guys, so now that we've introduced our staff of experts here, I want to turn this into a very lively exchange, not anything that you're probably not used to, but I'm going to start things off with, since we're talking about faster payments, I want to dive right into 5G, right? Because I don't think you can talk about the advent of faster payments, which is a technology, side of things, without talking about the convergence of a better payment system. And so is it a consensus here that 5G is going to help propagate the not only faster payments, but also the growth of mobile payments?
Well, I would say it's not only tied to the speed, but the ubiquity of what we as consumers have access to, right? So, if a real-time payment is maybe in today's parlance under 5 seconds, 10 seconds maybe, and it's not going to time out in the city of Atlanta. But when we get up to somewhere close to Tennessee, I don't think it would happen. I'm not sure it will time out, right?
Right.
And even if people have internet, and that's the thing, not everyone's carrying around a unlimited data package on their phone like I am. I'm a very lucky individual in that regard. So I think there's going to be some friction.
Yeah, but to take a step back though, talk about like old technology, what we're using today, a chip on a phone with the current basically software that's on it. That can make it that can make it an offline payment, and then catch up later. So we're somewhat insulated. But future payments, like real-time payments, like we were just describing here, those are very much going to be reliant on good quality speed.
Okay, and when we're talking about payments too, it's easy for us to talk about U.S.-centric, right? But there was also a terrific stat that said there are roughly 89% of the world now owns a smartphone, which is absolutely incredible. That translates to something like 6.65 billion folks. And if you take all the phones together, it's 92% of the global population owns a phone. Awesome opportunity for mobile payments to take place. So this is kind of, I'm going to spend a little more time on mobile phones before we move around, but I want to know, do you folks think that with talk of faster payment, does that mean we can't have security? Is it a give or take, or can you have both?
I think they can coexist, and I think 5G, as you spoke about, is one of the enablers for it. They're able to be ubiquitous in all different market types. And I'm quoting from the Wall Street Journal article. There are 2.3 billion mobile wallets in the world, 507 million of which are Apple Pay, just by itself. So again, the rest of the industry has to catch up to industry leaders like Apple Pay. There's Google Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, and so on. But until you get that kind of wide disbursement of technology, it'll be evolutionary, not revolutionary.
It's good. And when you talk about disbursement, we also need to talk cross-border payments, right? So are our challenges, the ones we're facing in the U.S., are these, and I'll throw it out to you, Elizabeth, are these worldwide in scope?
We talk about the number of smartphones in the world, but I'd like to see a stat which talks about the number of smartphones that actually have data packages attached to them.
Sure.
That's the challenge. I mean, all of Africa outside of the major cities is making real-time payments, all being, generic here, not everyone is, but they're not doing it on data. They're using USSD menus, and it works just fine. It's just a little more clunky from our perspective, but that's how it's happening.
Yeah, no, I think, we'll never have ubiquitous payments globally, all right? But that's a really good point that Elizabeth made, is that you have to have the right system, the right solution in the right area. I mean, mobile payments started in Africa. I mean, the very, MPC, had the first kind of a payment network, and it worked quite well. And they're still basically using that kind of same concept of mobile phone minutes and texting.
And a side note to that too, Stuart, is that at the company I co-founded, that was our initial deal was with MTN in South Africa.
Yeah.
That gave us global penetration in there. So that, yeah, you're absolutely right. And the slide that I just put on the screen is there courtesy of Incom. Thank you very much, Bob. And it's there to talk about, again, payment progress. So 10 years ago, we weren't really talking about, with any great, certainty, scanning to pay something, right? Or at least the experience was so bad nobody wanted to talk about it. But now we are getting to the point where the consumer experience is good, the merchant experience is good, and so this is a great example of that convergence, Bob, that I was talking about, where technology meets the payment evolution, and I think the experience for the consumers and the merchants is getting better all the time. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and to that point of it's generational as well too. And again, I'm quoting from the Wall Street Journal. 73% of Gen Z use mobile wallets, and they use Apple Pay and various others. So, once upon a time there were projectors, then there were VHS tapes, then there were CDs. Now they're streaming, 24/7. You can purge yourself with watching, show after show after show. So this evolution, if you've never known the past, you can only see the future. Right. And so consequently, that's the thing that, in fact, I see as coming as generational. They'll adopt it, accept it, because they have no legacy. They think this is the newest, greatest thing, and that's what they'll proceed with.
Awesome. The other thing about QR codes, is there any, who here works for one of the 5 networks? Raise your hand. Anyone? Perfect. Okay. I was going to ask him to leave anyway. But no, QR code is a bit of a gateway. It's the simplest of technologies of all the ones we talk about. But it is, many see it's maybe the first step towards point of sale, non-network transactions, circumvention of the networks.
And I think to that point, at the end of the day, it's a retailer, whether it's online, in person, or wherever else that's going to have to adopt it. It took 5 years to get pay at the pump with PINs, 5 years. And so consequently, some of this it's like, 400. World War II, 44 months. 400, 7 years going on 10. So consequently, what it amounts to is a lot of this is the technology has to be an enabler with it as well too.
Excellent. And it dovetails with the slide that's on right now. Is each of our distinguished guests on the stage are involved in certain organizations. There are a lot of smart folks out there trying to advance payment progress, right? And so it's happening, but sometimes, we get in the way of ourselves, and then there's the regulatory issues, right? So, Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you, and then guys, please jump in. Payment progress as we have it today. Are we where we need to be? Are you guys happy with where we're at, or are we light years behind where we ought to be?
We're probably light years behind where we should be or could be, right? But there's a lot of vested interest. There's a lot of legacy technology.
Is it the bad guys too? Are we trying to keep ahead of the bad guys and not doing a great job of it?
I don't know. Sometimes we just get in the way of ourselves. But, other countries don't have to overcome all the legacy. We benefit from all the great things that we've built over time, right? We don't want to just throw them away, but other countries have been paying with QR codes and real-time payments on their mobile device for a number of years, right? And talking about QR codes, I thought it was something that you read the menu with, right? Because that's basically how I experience it in the US. But in other countries, there's so many QR codes, they need to worry about the interoperability of them, and that's another sort of thing we could learn from as opposed to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, and I'll throw in that it's really interesting when somebody actually uses QR codes. They're kind of cool. So my company, AP Technology, we introduced QR codes on checks as a way to not only provide remittance information for the folks that get it. Hey, what is this check? Make sure everything is right. But you can put anything in that QR code, as everybody knows, from marketing, which is near and dear to my heart, to other information too. So I think it's slow, but it's kind of catching on. Do you guys agree, or are QR codes destined to die?
Oh, no. QR codes have a lot of value. Because that technology is simple, and almost really all phones, all smartphones can accommodate it. But back kind of to the original point, are we where we should be? The technology is there. Most of it, in real life, the rest of it theoretical, but it's all there. It's figured out. It's business arrangements. That's getting in our own way, I guess. Is the point.
And I think part of what pushes the entire process along is regulatory. Right now, if anybody doesn't think that central bank digital currency is not going to be the next big thing, talk to Elizabeth Warren. Oh, and her protege, that would be Rohit Chopra of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And if you've had the pleasure of meeting him, as I have twice, you will have central bank digital currency. They can control it. As much as my Uncle Blinky up in Chicago loves blockchain, I don't think will advance. Because, it's anonymous. So consequently, I think there's a whole regulatory, literally, in fact, the current administration and some of the support will bring some of these across, and it'll be regulatory that brings it, just like the Durbin Amendment brought in PIN-based transactions.
Okay, so we're talking about maybe some hurdles that exist, but I think, regardless of the rail that you use, I don't think there's any question that the existing payments today are being modernized to provide customers with a better experience. And I'll get off my soapbox in a minute, but it seems to me we have millions and millions of people that are still using checks. And it's not our job to push necessarily a rail, but to provide the best experience. So if Stuart, as a merchant, is using checks, but he's starting to look at something that's maybe faster and less expensive, he's going to start looking at electronic, payments as well. And so we, as a payment group, need to figure out the best way to transact, and I'll use that word safely again, right? Because whether it's, digital assets, Bob, or whatever it is, the bad guys are always out there, and they always want our money, right?
Yeah, I heard a term, first time I've ever heard it, I heard it today, and it was quantum resistant.
That's got to be Nitin.
Yeah, it
Nitin
was.
Gower, of course.
It was. And, that's pretty telling, because, when quantum arrives, it'll be a different world, and we're going to have to start preparing for that now. And
right. Well, I want to go back for a second and talk about impact globally on payments, because, and we could talk about US as well, because there is a population of our country that is underbanked, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So everybody wants to jump in, please do, but I want to talk about the experience from that point of view. How do we make faster payments better payments?
Just as we were saying before, the point of entry. Cell phones are common, but in less advantaged geographies, they tend, not to have all the functionality. They're inexpensive phones. I've got one right here. This is a $150 phone, and it doesn't do everything, right? So I think, having, like QR codes, having the technology fit, the solution fit the culture and the territory.
And I actually think that prepaid cards living digitally on our phones is going to support a lot of unbanked, is a transition, right? You may not have a traditional bank account, but you'll have value that you can have on your phone. The question is where and under what terms can you spend it?
Of course.
And then the interface of the consumer with it, and to that point of it is, general purpose reloadable cards were supposed to be the savior of the day. That was before the little Wayne card and the Kardashian card and the Susie Orman card and the Telemundo card, and they're not around anymore. So consequently, this will take some technology and interface at the point of sale. And unbanked or underbanked consumers are a very large percentage of the population, even in the United States.
Okay, so before I get to our final question, I'm going to throw you guys a little bit of a curveball. I want to address and see if you guys either agree or disagree with me that, when we talk about payment progress, when we talk...
I disagree.
Oh, man.
I just wanted to be first.
I can get this kind of abuse at home, okay,
Yeah,
Stuart?
okay.
The payment progress underway, I think, is a moving target, right? I think when we talk about faster payments, 5 years from now, it's going to be a joke, right? We're always improving. And I think with regard to the newer payments, the digital assets, of course, that Nitin Gower was talking about, we're going to find out that we don't know what we don't know. And it's going to take a lot of course correction for us to find payments, find a safer way to do business, find a way to get it in the right hands, and make sure that it's experience that everybody wants, right? Would you guys agree with that statement? Elizabeth?
I actually wasn't sure what the question was.
Well, it was more of a statement, right? So that payments are evolving,
Yeah.
right? And so when we're talking about faster, better payments today, it's going to be a lot different. Can we agree that the payments today are going to be improved but looking better 5 years from now?
Yeah, and have you seen the same-day ACH growth numbers? It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And, FedNow, I think somebody mentioned that before, is actually launching a program in 2023. However, it's already being used by about 120 vendors as we speak. So it's something that's going to happen, and it's supposed to be, eye-opening. So we'll keep an eye on that for next year for sure. But Bob, with regard to security, and then I'm going to ask you guys your question. I wanted to finish your thought about tokenization. And, Stuart, I know you've got a lot of experience here as well, and Elizabeth. Is that going to be the secret sauce going forward for us to secure payments?
It will be if it's ubiquitous. It will be if you can get X amount of the population, which right now is underbanked or literally non-banked, and they can't even use cash in a retail establishment because that retail establishment has stopped taking cash. So I think it'll be, if it progresses and we can enable people at all stratas of economic, I'll call it development, that they can use it. If not, then again, I'll go back to what I've said for the third time now. It'll be evolutionary, not revolutionary.
Thank you. Okay, the fun part of our program. I'm going to go in order that I introduced you. Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you. For your participation today, you get a magic wand, okay? You get to change anything about the payment landscape that you like. How are you going to
My
change?
bank account.
Well, I'm draining it as we speak.
Yeah.
What are you going to change, Elizabeth?
Well, maybe based on the conversation we've had today, a nod to your field, Greg. I'd give everybody some data every month so that they could enjoy all of the benefits that we have with modern, secure, faster payments.
Wonderful, thank you. Bob, over to you. Your magic wand?
My magic wand is this. Don't let the federal government, as it says, behind Washington's tougher stance on payments, and that tougher stance, coming particularly out of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is to stifle innovation.
Regulation tends to
and
do that, right?
innovation. Right.
Okay.
And that'll do it.
Thank you, Bob. And Stuart.
A chip right there,
Oh,
right there.
so you can transact anytime, anywhere.
Yep.
Is that interoperability?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much. I want to thank everybody. I know we had a kind of a lengthy session here. I'm going to invite anybody that has questions to please either ask our distinguished panel. I'm available if you'd like to ask me, and I'll make sure they get any questions. But otherwise, hey, thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.